Those who read this letter will be the most successful people today. I will be the one to provide you with knowledge, experience, and wealth. Most importantly, from this point forward, I will help you memorize the lessons of success in the shortest time possible. Share me with your friends so that together, we can become elite and build lasting wealth.
Today, more than ever, the world is divided into two distinct groups of people: those who are played by the financial system and those who have learned to master the game. The vast majority of the global population wakes up every morning to trade their most precious, non-renewable resource, time, for a piece of paper that is being devalued by the second. They are trapped in a labyrinth of hidden fees, predatory marketing, and complex jargon designed to keep them confused and subservient. But imagine a man who decides he has had enough. He stands at the edge of the financial abyss and realizes that the experts he trusted are often nothing more than salespeople in expensive suits. And the security he was promised is a desert mirage. This man embarks on a quest to infiltrate the inner sanctums of the world's most powerful financial titans, seeking the secrets that have been guarded by the 0.001% for generations. His journey is not just about accumulating currency. It is a psychological battle to reclaim his freedom and protect his family from the inevitable storms of a volatile global economy. He discovers that the game is rigged. But he also learns that if you know the rules, you can win even when the house is stacked against you. The awakening begins with a single, brutal truth: you cannot earn your way to freedom through labor alone. You must become an owner, a builder of a money machine that works while you sleep, or you will remain a slave to the clock until the day you die. The first step in this odyssey is the realization of the Freedom Fund. The protagonist of our story learns that most people fail because they wait for a windfall to start saving, or they save what is left over at the end of the month. In reality, what is left over is usually zero. To break the cycle, he must automate his future. He decides to tax himself, taking a percentage of every dollar that comes through his hands, be it 10%, 15%, or even 20%, and moving it into a private sanctuary where it can never be touched for consumption. This is the seed of his money machine. He understands that the power of compound interest is the closest thing to a miracle in the material world. But it requires the one thing most people lack: consistency. By automating this contribution, he removes his own flawed, emotional human nature from the equation. The analytical lesson here is that financial success is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. If you do not make the decision to pay yourself first, you are effectively deciding to pay everyone else, the landlord, the grocer, the car dealer, before you pay your future self. Wealth begins with the discipline of the Freedom Fund, a non-negotiable commitment to treat your savings as a bill that must be paid to your destiny. As the journey continues, the protagonist must navigate the financial jungle, a place teeming with brokers who claim to have his best interests at heart but are often legally bound only to sell him products that earn them the highest commissions. He discovers the shocking reality of hidden fees in mutual funds, tiny percentages like 1% or 2% that, over 40 years, can consume up to 60% of his potential nest egg. It is a slow-motion robbery that takes place in broad daylight. To survive, he seeks out fiduciaries, the rare breed of advisors who are legally required to put the client's interests first. He learns the difference between a salesperson and a pilot. A salesperson wants to sell him a ticket on the plane. A pilot wants to land the plane safely because they are on it too. This part of the narrative emphasizes the critical importance of financial literacy. You do not need to be a math genius to win, but you must understand the math of loss. A 50% loss requires a 100% gain just to get back to even. By stripping away the layers of unnecessary fees and avoiding the traps of active management that fail to beat the market 96% of the time, our protagonist gains a massive head start over the masses. The quest then leads him to the masters of the game, the billionaires like Ray Dalio, the founder of the world's largest hedge fund. Dalio reveals a secret that shatters the protagonist's old beliefs. Most people think that to get high returns, you must take high risks. This is a lie designed to keep the average investor broke. The masters seek asymmetric risk-reward, where the downside is strictly limited but the upside is virtually uncapped. Dalio shares the all-weather strategy, a revolutionary way to allocate assets so that the portfolio can thrive in any economic season, whether the sun is shining on the economy or a blizzard of inflation is tearing through the markets. Our protagonist learns that he must diversify not just into different stocks, but into different asset classes that move in opposite directions. He learns to balance his security bucket, cash, bonds, and safe havens, with his growth bucket, stocks, real estate, and commodities, and a dream bucket to keep his spirit alive. This narrative shift shows a man moving from a gambler's mindset to a strategist's mindset. The analytical takeaway is that asset allocation is the only thing that truly determines your long-term returns. It is the holy grail of investing. By spreading his bets across different economic environments, he ensures that no single crash can ever wipe him out. The emotional intensity peaks as the protagonist faces the conqueror's conundrum: how much money is actually enough? He discovers that most people have a vague, terrifying goal of being a millionaire, but they have never calculated the actual cost of their dreams. He sits down to define his levels of success. First is financial security, having enough to cover housing, utilities, food, and basic transport without working. Then, financial independence, maintaining his current lifestyle forever. And finally, financial freedom, the ability to afford any luxury he desires. By putting real numbers to these dreams, the giant within him realizes that his goals are much closer than he thought. The fear of the unknown is replaced by the clarity of a plan. He realizes that he doesn't need to make $20 million, he needs a portfolio that generates a specific amount of yield. This shift from net worth to income stream is the ultimate liberation. We learn that wealth is not a number in a bank account that you eventually spend to zero. Wealth is a living, breathing entity that provides for you and your family in perpetuity. The story then follows him into the realm of tax mastery. He learns that it's not what you earn, but what you keep. He discovers how the ultra-rich use legal structures, life insurance, and specific tax-advantaged accounts to shield their gains from the IRS. He sees that the average person is losing 30% to 50% of their wealth to taxes, while the masters pay a fraction of that. This isn't about evasion, it's about using the laws as they were written for those who know how to read them. Our protagonist becomes a tax-efficient investor, realizing that $1 saved in taxes is worth more than $1 earned in the market because it requires zero risk. The narrative here is one of empowerment and precision. He is no longer a passive victim of the system, he is an active participant who uses the rules to his advantage. The lesson for the observer is that tax loss harvesting and location of assets are the quiet engines of massive wealth accumulation. To ignore taxes is to leave the door of your vault wide open for the government to walk in and help themselves. As he approaches the final stages of the game, the protagonist realizes that the ultimate goal is not just to be rich, but to be wealthy in spirit. He observes the empty millionaires who are still miserable because they are still chasing a ghost. He learns the secret to living is giving. He begins to use his financial power to feed the hungry and provide water to the thirsty, finding that his internal state is the true measure of his success. He masters the state of certainty, knowing that market crashes are not disasters, but sales where he can buy more of the world's best companies at a discount. He understands that winter will always come, but if he is prepared, winter is the season where the greatest fortunes are made. The storytelling shows a man who has transcended the fear of money and turned it into a tool for global good. The analytical core of this stage is that contribution is the final step of the financial plan. True mastery is achieved when money is no longer the master of your emotions, but the servant of your values. The man who once feared his bank statement now stands as a beacon of hope for others. He has deconstructed the complex world of finance and rebuilt it into a simple, 7-step ladder that anyone can climb. He knows that the game of money is winnable, but only for those who are willing to take control, educate themselves, and act with unshakable resolve. He has learned from the greatest minds on the planet, and his life is the evidence that these principles work. The story of Money, Master the Game is not just a financial manual, it is a declaration of independence for the soul. It is the story of how a human being can reclaim their dignity from a system that wants them to remain a debt-ridden consumer. The giant is awake. The machine is built, and the future is secure. The only question that remains is whether you are ready to stop being a spectator and start being a player. The first 10.000 characters of this narrative arc conclude here, showing the protagonist as he successfully navigates the initial fog of confusion, identifies the predators in the jungle, and begins to build the indestructible foundations of his financial fortress through the all-weather philosophy and the automation of his freedom fund. He has moved from the anxiety of, how much do I have, to the clarity of, how do I grow it safely, and, how do I protect it from fees and taxes? The path ahead is one of increasing complexity and even greater rewards as he learns the specific plays of the 0.001% and prepares for the final transition from accumulation to an income stream that will last for generations. The protagonist's descent into the deep mechanics of the financial machine reveals a darker truth. The world of high finance is designed to be a hall of mirrors, where what appears to be a safe investment is often a trapdoor leading to ruin. To navigate this, he enters the second stage of his transformation, shifting from a defensive builder to a sophisticated architect of income. He discovers that the all-weather strategy provided by Ray Dalio is not just a collection of assets, but a profound understanding of economic seasons. He learns that there are only 4 environments that can exist: higher than expected inflation, lower than expected inflation, higher than expected growth, and lower than expected growth. Most investors bet their entire lives on a single season, growth, and are decimated when the winter of recession or the drought of inflation arrives. By balancing his portfolio with assets that perform in each of these 4 climates, the protagonist creates a vessel that can sail through any storm. This is the moment he realizes that risk is not a price you must pay for reward, but a variable you must engineer out of existence. As he refines his machine, he encounters the masters of asymmetric risk-reward. He studies Paul Tudor Jones, a man who famously predicted the 1987 market crash. Jones reveals a secret that sounds like heresy to the average person: 5 to 1. For every dollar he risks, he seeks a minimum of $5 in return. This means he can be wrong 80% of the time and still not lose a penny. The protagonist realizes he has been taught the exact opposite: to risk $5 to make 1. He begins to look for asymmetric opportunities, where the downside is protected by floor structures and the upside is participation in the market's growth. He discovers the power of fixed-indexed annuities and market-linked notes, tools that allow him to capture the gains of the S&P 500 while being guaranteed that he will never lose his principal, even if the market drops by 40%. The analytical lesson is staggering. You do not have to be a genius if you stop losing money. The math of the zero is the most powerful force in finance. If you never take a loss, your gains compound with a speed that is almost incomprehensible. Mastery is about protecting the downside while leaving the ceiling wide open. The narrative then takes him into the heart of the income generation phase. He learns that the greatest fear of the modern retiree is not death, but outliving their money. He watches as millions of elderly people, who worked hard and saved diligently, are forced to eat into their capital during a market downturn, a sequence of returns risk that can destroy a lifetime of savings in a few years. To solve this, our protagonist learns to turn his pile of money into a stream of income. He builds a lifetime income bridge, using structured products and low-cost insurance vehicles that provide a check every month for as long as he lives. Regardless of how long that might be, he is no longer an investor, he is the owner of a private pension system. The storytelling depicts the immense psychological relief this brings. The weight of "what if" is lifted. By securing his income floor, he grants himself the emotional freedom to take more significant risks with his remaining capital. The analytical takeaway is that the goal of the game is not net worth, it is spendable cash flow. You cannot eat your house, and you cannot pay medical bills with a stock certificate unless you sell it. True wealth is the automated delivery of capital to your doorstep every 30 days. But the protagonist's journey is not just about his own comfort. It is about the 0.001% plays. He explores the world of private equity and venture capital, realizing that the real wealth in the world is created before a company ever goes public. He learns how to gain access to institutional class investments that were previously reserved for those with tens of millions of dollars. He discovers tontines and modern versions of wealth insurance, where his money can grow tax-free and be passed to his heirs without the crippling touch of the estate tax. He realizes that the wealthy play a different game because they have different tools. However, he also learns that technology is democratizing these tools. What used to require a private banker now requires only a smartphone and the right knowledge. This segment of the story is one of empowerment. He is no longer a spectator looking through the window at the feast. He has walked through the door and taken a seat at the table. The lesson here is that complexity is the enemy of execution, but knowledge is the key to access. To master the game, you must look where others are not looking and use the vehicles that the system tries to hide from the masses. The emotional arc intensifies as he masters market volatility. Instead of running for the hills when the news anchors scream about a crash, the protagonist learns to rebalance with the cold-blooded efficiency of a machine. He knows that when stocks go down, they are on sale. He understands that a crash is the greatest gift a young or middle-aged investor can receive. He practices dollar-cost averaging, but takes it a step further by tax loss harvesting during downturns, using his losses to offset his gains and lower his tax bill to near zero. He sees the market not as a monster to be feared, but as a manic-depressive business partner who offers him prices that are sometimes too high and sometimes too low. He waits for the low moments with the patience of a tiger. This narrative portrays a man who has conquered his own fear. We learn that your greatest enemy is not the market, but your own amygdala, the part of your brain that wants to sell when everyone else is selling. Mastery of money is, at its core, the mastery of your own emotional state during times of uncertainty. The protagonist then turns his attention to the efficiency of the machine. He looks at his life through the lens of optimization. He realizes that he can reach his financial goals 30% to 50% faster simply by moving to a more tax-friendly state or country, or by restructuring his business to take advantage of corporate tax laws. He looks for internal efficiencies, cutting out the lifestyle leeches that provide no joy but drain his capital. He isn't being cheap, he is being lethal with his resources. He views every dollar as a life energy unit. If he spends $50 on a car that he doesn't truly love, he isn't just spending money, he is spending a year of his life that he can never get back. This realization brings a profound sense of time wealth. By optimizing his spending and his taxes, he buys back years of his future. The storytelling follows him as he simplifies his life, focusing only on the experiences and people that matter. The analytical lesson is that wealth is the ability to live life on your own terms. If you can lower your cost of living while increasing your quality of life, you have won the game before you even reach your final number. In the penultimate stage of his journey, our protagonist addresses the psychology of wealth. He realizes that many people reach their financial goals but remain trapped in a scarcity mindset, unable to enjoy what they have built. He meets with billionaires who are miserable and middle-class families who are ecstatic. He learns that the human brain is not designed to make us happy, it is designed to make us survive. To be happy, he must consciously prime his mind for gratitude. He begins every day by reflecting on the abundance in his life, ensuring that his internal thermostat is set to fulfillment rather than hunger. He discovers that the real master of the game is the person who can be wealthy regardless of how much money they have. This part of the narrative is a spiritual awakening. He understands that money is a great servant but a terrible master. If you do not master your mind, money will only make you more of what you already are. If you are miserable, money will make you miserably wealthy. The lesson is that internal work is the foundation upon which the external fortress is built. As he stands at the summit of his financial quest, the protagonist prepares for the final transition, the act of living and giving. He looks at the 7 steps he has climbed and realizes they have led him to a place of total certainty. He has automated his savings, avoided the predators, defined his goals, allocated his assets, secured his income, invested like the elite, and optimized his life. But he knows that a life lived only for oneself is a small life. He begins to design his giving plan, realizing that the ultimate yield on his money is the impact it can have on the world. He finds a cause that sets his soul on fire, ending hunger, providing education, or protecting the environment, and he applies the same strategic rigor to his philanthropy that he applied to his investing. He realizes that the game was never about the scoreboard, it was about the person he had to become to win it. The storytelling portrays a man of immense gravity and grace, a man who has replaced worry with contribution. The analytical core of this stage is that meaning is the ultimate currency. When your money serves a purpose beyond your own ego, it gains a power that is truly infinite. The protagonist is now ready to share his blueprint with the world. He has deconstructed the complex, intimidating world of finance into a series of logical, actionable steps. He knows that the average Joe can become a financial giant if they simply follow the path. He has seen the evidence in his own life and in the lives of the titans he interviewed. The second 10.000 characters of this saga conclude with the protagonist standing on the threshold of a new existence. One where the game is no longer a struggle, but a joyous expression of his own values. He has moved through the technical, how to, and into the why, preparing for the final summation of his journey where he will reveal the core message that binds all these steps together into a single, unshakable philosophy of life. The final ascent of the financial mountain brings the protagonist to a realization that is both humbling and exhilarating. The mastery of money is not the destination, but the vehicle that allows one to explore the true depths of the human experience. In this conclusive phase, the man who once lived in the shadow of the bank's ledger begins to look at the world through the lens of the architect. He realizes that the ultimate power of the 7-step system is that it creates a time fortress. By securing his income through Ray Dalio's all-weather strategy and using asymmetric risk-reward to capture market upside without the soul-crushing downside, he has essentially retired from the need to work and entered the choice to work. This distinction is the threshold of true psychological freedom. He spends his days not in a frantic chase for the next dollar, but in the deliberate pursuit of mastery, connection, and legacy. The narrative here becomes an ethereal exploration of a life without financial friction. The analytical lesson is the Law of 72, a simple math rule showing how quickly money doubles, but for our protagonist. The doubling is not just in his bank account, but in the quality of his relationships and the intensity of his presence. He understands that most people die at 25 and aren't buried until 75. He, however, has used his financial machine to ensure he remains fully alive every single day. As he completes the final steps, the protagonist confronts the ultimate trap, the belief that more will eventually lead to enough. He sees billionaire acquaintances who are still tethered to their tickers, their blood pressure rising and falling with every basis point, because they lack an internal stop-loss for their own greed. To avoid this, he masters the art of strategic philanthropy. He doesn't just write checks, he applies the same 7-step rigor to his giving as he did to his getting. He realizes that the yield on a donation that feeds a village or educates a child is infinitely higher than any stock dividend. This part of the story depicts the circular flow of wealth. By giving, he creates a vacuum that the universe seems compelled to fill with more opportunity, more energy, and more joy. The lesson is that the only way to keep your wealth in any meaningful sense is to give it away to a cause that outlives you. Money is like manure. If you pile it up, it stinks. But if you spread it around, it makes everything grow. The protagonist has become the gardener of his own community, ensuring that the giant within him is used to lift the giants within others. The narrative reaches its psychological climax when the protagonist shares his legacy plan. He realizes that his children will inherit not just his money, but his financial DNA. He spends time teaching them that money is a tool for creation, not a substitute for character. He implements incentivized trusts that reward work, education, and contribution, ensuring that his wealth doesn't become a golden handcuff that prevents his heirs from finding their own purpose. He understands that the greatest gift is not a life without struggle, but a life with the tools to overcome it. The storytelling portrays a family meeting where the values of the Freedom Fund are passed down like a sacred flame. This teaches us that the 7 steps are not just a one-generation play, but a multi-generational strategy for family sovereignty. True wealth is the ability to protect your bloodline from the economic fluctuations and predatory systems of the future. The protagonist has built a cathedral of capital, and his children are the stewards who will keep the lights burning. Finally, the protagonist looks back at the 7 steps and sees them for what they truly are: a bridge across the river of fear. Step 1 was the commitment to be a player, not a consumer. Step 2 was the insider knowledge to avoid the fees and the traps. Step 3 was the clarity of the number, knowing exactly what freedom costs. Step 4 was the asset allocation, the all-weather protection. Step 5 was the income insurance, ensuring a check for life. Step 6 was the 0.001% plays for asymmetric upside. And Step 7 was the living and giving that gave the whole journey meaning. He realizes that anyone, the teacher, the janitor, the engineer, can cross this bridge if they are willing to take the first step and never look back. The story of money, master the game, is the story of the democratization of the elite. It is the proof that the secrets of the ultra-wealthy are no longer behind locked doors. They are available to anyone with the hunger to learn and the discipline to execute. The giant is not a person, it is a process. It is the process of taking total responsibility for one's financial destiny and refusing to be a victim of the system. The core message of this book is that financial freedom is a math problem that has already been solved by the world's greatest minds. And your only task is to follow the proven formula. Tony Robbins intends to convey that wealth is not a matter of luck or superior intelligence, but of understanding the rules of the game and using the same tools, compounding, asset allocation, and tax efficiency, that the billionaires use, by moving from being a consumer of the economy to an owner of it, and by automating your savings into a protected, all-weather environment. You can insulate yourself from the volatility of the world and create a life of absolute certainty. The true meaning of the game is not the accumulation of paper, but the reclamation of your time and the ability to contribute to something larger than yourself. The giant within you is awakened the moment you stop working for money and start making money work for you. Your wealth is the direct result of the value you add to the marketplace and the discipline with which you protect your freedom.